Welcome! In this series of short videos, we will look at topics common to both the PowerBasic console and Windows compilers. Today, we will look again at the use of power collections within your application. In our last video, we looked at PowerBasic power collections, and we took a simple CSV file with a few customer records in it, and we loaded that into a customer's power collection. This allowed us to add, remove and update records within the collection, as well as sorting the collection itself. However, this was all in memory. We had no facility to save the collection itself to disk, so that subsequent runs of the program could load up the collection directly. That's what we're going to tackle today. But first, we've got some tidying up to do in our code. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the customers collection a global. This will allow us quite easily to access it through the rest of the application without having to pass any parameters. Now, we're in the pb main function at the moment, and it's good practice to keep this pb main function as short and as concise as possible, and to call many of the actual logic of your code from functions and subroutines. So that's what we're going to do to tidy up here. What we're doing here is we're loading the CSV file into an array for processing. We'll move this into its own subroutine. So we're going to create a new function here whose job it will be to load the raw CSV file into our collection. Now in this function will be our variables, the array into which we're going to load the CSV file. A simple long we're going to use to step through the array to put it into the collection, and the UDT, which is the individual record. And of course our key, which is the key we're going to use to put the information into our collection. So we're going to call in one of the routines we created in our previous video, which quite simply loads the file straight into our array. And if we are unable to load this, we'll just return a false. So in here we're going to have a simple for next loop, and as we did in the last video, this is quite simply going to take each of the records within that array for the element we're interested in and populate the account number, the first name, the surname, the address and the telephone number. Now, having got that information into the UDT, we're then going to add it to our collection. So the first job is to populate our key, which in this case is just the customer's account number, which is a 4-digit number, and we then add that to the customer's collection using the add method. This was all covered in our last video. All we're doing here is creating a generic function just to load it up for us. So assuming we get to the end here, we'll then return true that our function has successfully completed its operation. So if we go back to our main routine, this in here will load our raw file. So all this code here can quite happily go. So having loaded the data into our collection, we want to display how many customers we have in that collection using the customers count method. And we can then add another record. We can check to see we have actually managed to add that or not. We can remove a record. We can update a record. And once that's done, we can replace the information. And then finally, we sort the collection. And then to prove we've done this successfully, we pull back each record in the collection and display it in our log. So a little bit of code tidying up, and we're just about there. Right. Now, if we do a quick test compile, yes, that's run successfully. If we run our code now, we'll see there's what we had at the end of the last video. We have effectively stored each of our records. There have been 8 records in the collection. We've added an additional record with account number 1300, bringing us up to 9 records. We've removed account number 1200, bringing us back down to 8. And we've checked the data at record number 3, and we've effectively updated it. And then we've printed out what's in the collection. So that's quite straightforward. Now what we want to do at the end, once we've actually proved we've got information into our collection, is we want to save it. We'll create another function whose job it is to save our collection. Now we're going to save this to a new file called customer.txt. And we're going to give feedback to the user to let them know that it successfully saved the file or not. So all we have to do now is to create a new function. So we're now into new territory here. So how do we save a collection to disk? Now our collection consists of a series of accounts, and we can pull the accounts out of the collection quite happily. We've proved that to display it on screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to, for each entry in our collection, we're going to pull out the record, put it into a user-defined type, and we're going to save that user-defined type to disk. So we're going to need some variables here. A file handle for the file we're about to create, a variant to contain the data we're pulling out of the collection, and a user-defined type to contain the information we're pulling out for the customer's record. So first thing to do is to get a handle for the file we're about to create. So free file will give us the next available file handle. So we're going to do an open command for the file name we've been passed in, which includes the path, for output as the file handle we've just created. And in here we want our for each loop for each record in the collection. And since we've made the customer's collection global, we don't have to do any declaring for that. And just as we did in the previous video, we'll be using the typeset command. And the typeset command is going to populate our user-defined type from the variant we've pulled back in vdata. But as I said in the last video, you can't equate these directly because vdata is a variant and the user-defined type is not. Therefore, what we have to do is use the variant $command. And this will do the conversion for you. Then all we have to do is to print out to our file we've just created, quite simply by giving it the name of the user-defined type. And that's it. That will save our collection to disk. And we just have to close off our file. Now we'll want to put some error trapping in here. So what we can do is we can put a try catch in here. So that should any error occur between the try and the catch, it will be captured in here. Now if we get to the end of the file saving, then our function can be true. If we end up in the catch, then our function can be false. So that will tell us whether it's actually saved successfully or not. You can add to this routine, of course, to churn out the actual error message that was generated when you dropped into the catch section of the try catch. So if we try this, let's just do a quick compile. Oh, we've missed something. Oh, 2 hashes. Only need the 1. And I did exactly the same there. So let's... Right, okay. So if we have a look at our folder, and here is where our CSV file exists. This is our raw file. We're going to create a customers file, which is going to be a text file in here. So if we run our program now, there's the information on screen. So we should now have a customers text file, which we do. We open up the customers text file and have a look at it. There are our records. 1 row for each entry in the collection with all our data. So what it's doing here is it's saving the UDT record as 1 line of data. So since we've got it in such a simple format, we can now, when the program runs initially, we can load up those UDT records into our collection. Where we have at the moment the command to load the raw file, we're going to put in a new function to load our collection. So for the moment we'll just duplicate this, as it's going to do much the same job, and we'll just call it load collection. And the file we're going to load customers.txt. So we'll comment out the one that loads the raw file, and we'll have a look at our load collection one now. So just as before, we will need some variables here. The file handle, a string to hold customer data, the user-defined type into which we're putting that customer data, and our key for the record. So first thing to do again is we will get the next file handle. And we want to pull in our file. So again, we're going to put a try catch loop in here. Now, while this file is open, we don't know how big this file is going to be, so we'll use a while loop in this one. So while this particular file is not in the file, we will do a loop. And eventually we will close our file handle. So if we do find an error in our catch, our function can return false. And all the work's going to be done inside the while loop. So the first thing to do is to read each line of data from this file 1 line at a time. So we use the line input command on our file handle, and we'll put the data into our str customers variable, which is just an ordinary string. And having got that into that string, we can then use the typeset command, which we used in the previous video. And we're going to populate the user-defined type by using it straight from the string we're bringing in. So that's got a user-defined type populated. What we want to do next is to add the customer record to our collection. So we'll need to populate the key first of all, and that's going to be equal to the account number within the user-defined type. And then using the customers add method, we will then add the entire user-defined type to the customer's collection using our W key. Now, just in case that doesn't work, we will do a test on the object result. So what we've done in here is we've opened a file, which is the file we've been passed in, which is our customer's text file. For each record within that file, we're reading the data line in, we're setting up our UDT based on the string we've taken out of that file. We're then taking the UDT and we're adding it to the customer's collection using the account number as our key. Assuming that has worked, we're printing out that the key has been stored. If not, we're printing out it's either not stored or it's been errored. And if we get to the end of the wend without any errors kicking in, then our function can be true. So let's do a quick compile to make sure we haven't missed anything, and we've managed that one okay. So what this should do is we have a load collection in here and we have a save collection. So if we go back to our original code, once the file has been loaded, we should add extra records, take a record away, update a record, and then when we get down to the bottom, it will then sort the data, display the data on the screen, and then save the collection back out to the customer file again. So if we try running that now, the problem we had there was that the file we saved was customer.txt and the file we're trying to load is customers.txt. So I think since there is more than one customer in the file, I think calling it customers.txt is probably a better idea. So we'll just change our code so when we get down to the bottom and it actually saves the file, we will save it as customers.txt. We'll change the file name in here and our code should quite happily run now. Let's just double check what we're loading. Loading customers.txt. So if we run the program now, it should attempt to load the customers.txt file into our collection. It should display our collection having done all the operations on it, and then it should save it again. And there we have it. So the file is being loaded up directly from the customer's collection file. It's displaying the records on screen. It's adding, removing, and amending a record, as well as sorting our collection. And it's outputting the collection to screen, and it's now saving the collection to disk. So what we have in here is a little database system that allows you to load records into it initially using the load from CSV. You can then save the collection as a file, and each future iteration of the program can then load up the collection directly, do operations on it, and then save it to disk again. So that's it for today. Thank you for watching.